Randy.
Well, I think Greg has brought up probably the best example of this, Zone 7, where you have an area that is approximately 80% dependent upon imported water, and that is the basis on which that economy has grown. It really isn't, in a true sense, a supplemental water supply. It is part of their baseline supply. So I would support this clarifying language change. Just I don't think it takes away from the intent to reduce reliance on the Delta, but it does, to the casual reader, I agree, it would make it seem something less than a frivolous water supply for at least that particular area of the state.
Mr. Don.
Yeah. Joe, any response to further elaborating? I mean,
no, I don't. I actually think that that's accurate, so I don't have a problem being more accurate. Martha's looking at me with that look like I shouldn't.
The only thing I was puzzling over, and you can see me flipping through the pages, I remember writing this example that's as zones, because there is a difference in different areas as to that portfolio of water supplies, and some areas have become or do have a large percentage of the water supply coming from the Delta.
In fact, adding a parenthesis there, say, for example, these supplies have become core. Something along those lines. We'd have to work on the words. I'm not a great wordsmith.
Well, look. This is a situation where complicated contracts for water are signed by the state of California and water districts. And the category of water they received is different in the expectations of the parties. And in all cases, all water users would like to have a characterization that anything that appears on paper is automatically an entitlement. But they've got Table A water, they've got Section 21 water, they've got interruptible water, all of which is clearly defined in the contract and clearly indicated that, guys, you're operating on water that is not as reliable as if it were in the first category. But nobody wants to say that because that might mean that they get less water. Well, of course they get less water. The damn contracts say they get less water if the functions of the state water project are not being served. I mean, the writing of this perpetuates the argument that all the water that's shipped out of the Delta in the highest year possible is an entitlement given by God, never to be changed, even if the contracts say differently. And it is preposterous. And for as long as I've been in California politics, the argument that people who demand the sanctity of a contract misstate what the contract says and expect everyone else to sit back and say, oh, okay, that's just foolish.
I don't think that's what we're intending to.
No, I understand.
So.
But Mr. Zlotnick's suggestion to temper down the discussion so you understand that water which is not guaranteed to them in spite of any terms or conditions is somehow vitally important, really wonderfully important, is to encourage the argument that they're entitled to it. And if a contract means anything, reading the damn thing is pretty important. And so I'm not saying that I don't object to your language. I didn't object to the thing. Ms. Gray took it off the agenda because people who want to overstate the terms of the contract are paying attention to our language, and they'd like to encourage us to allow them to continue to overstate. That's my personal opinion. Not that it surprises you.
Phil, but the language that would not overstate it, I guess, but to state it accurately and not to infer anything by that, you're okay with what Joe said or no? Because I appreciate your
I'm not opposed to it, but look, we're at the point now where the objections are not to a policy, they're not to a regulation, they're not to anything we can legally enforce, they're to how we say what we want to say. And to turn over to interest groups, say you can't say something we might not like, even if it's not a policy and it's not enforceable. You can't say that. That's nuts. That's just nuts.
So would you prefer we just say the sentence like it is now and not make the change? Is that what you're saying?
No, I would keep the staff language. Joe has made a suggestion, at least that the reference to contract might be deleted, as I understand your suggestion. I'm open on that suggestion.
Yeah, and actually
We know that we didn't get a second for a motion for Mr. Zlotnick's suggestion to delete the sentence or sentences that offended it.
Okay.
So those sentences stay in as far as I can tell.
Right, they do.
And I don't mind minor adjustments. Mr. Zlotnick said, well, if I can't win that one, at least we ought to get some explanation. Oh, within limits. But the problem is the language you drafted in the final staff draft Delta plan is pretty clear that unrealistic expectations should not be encouraged, and you should read the damn contracts and understand them and not claim that they say more than they actually do. Now, that's my understanding of the intent of the council. So if you want to vary from that, we'll have a fight about it. But I don't hear you vary.
No, I don't want to vary from that, but I think there is some clarification that we can do consistent with Mr. Zlotnick's proposal.
Mr. Chair, can I hear what Joe has to say? Thank you for your comments, but I really would like to hear.
So that's what I think we might be able to clarify it still further. I want to look at exact language, and so I'm fine with you authorizing us to do that. I'm also fine if you don't want us to do that. So either way, I think we could clarify it further, because I think it makes the point even more clearly that people have become dependent on water supplies that they probably shouldn't have become dependent on, and that makes the problem more difficult to solve.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, okay.
Well, if that's the clarification, I'm okay with that.
And that is an important clarification.
Okay.
It's the same clarification we make when we talk about underground water. It damnably compounds problems when we overtap underground sources. Same issue. Okay. All right. Without objection, we're going to take Mr. Grindstaff's suggestion, let him do some minor tinkering with the language, but we have not accepted the recommendation to remove the offending sentences that Mr. Zlotnick wanted removed. Okay, without objection. Item 80, I'm sorry, Ms. Gray.
Can you take number 43 and 145 together? Is that what the discussion was?
Might be a good idea.